Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics, from a very sleepy state capital in Jefferson City. I am joined by a senator at the center of it all, Senator Curtis Trent. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, great to be here.
So, a 14-hour marathon session in the state senate on Wednesday. We're taping this Thursday morning. I appreciate you doing the quick turnaround being here.
Yeah.
If you don't live in Franklin County, the only thing that really came out of that that benefits Missourians is your capital gains tax cut. Tell folks about it.
Yeah, so I think it's a big deal. So the personal capital gains tax will be eliminated immediately, and then we put a trigger on the corporate capital gains tax, so that will go away once the state income tax hits 4.5%. As probably a lot of your listeners know, we have two triggers that are currently baked in. So as state revenues increase, you'll eventually hit that 4.5%. So this is essentially a third trigger that would now exist.
Okay, explain to folks that maybe aren't as up on tax policy, maybe they don't have huge investors, not flipping houses. What is a capital gains tax?
So capital gains is basically the difference between the value of an asset when you sell it and the value of the asset when you acquire it. And in the context that, this is aimed at in my mind is particularly Missourians that, they work their whole life, they build up a business, family business, maybe the family farm, and they want to sell that while it's still productive, while it's still valuable. Right now they're taking a huge one-time hit, maybe once-in-a-lifetime hit for that asset. And this would alleviate at least the Missouri side of that expense.
So the federal part that you have.
Yeah, so there's still going to be federal capital gains out there, but
that's a different capital.
Yeah, that's a different capital, different problem. But we want Missourians to be able to pass assets on to the next generation, particularly with the family farm or with a small family business. If that asset lays dormant for too long because, some people want to retire.
Yeah.
And that asset can lose value, can lose productivity, and maybe won't get passed on in the way that it would if it's passed on immediately.
How much money do you project this saves Missourians?
So I think the fiscal note was around 250 to 300 million. Now the bill changed a little bit. Some other things were added in, so that may not be the sum total of the bill, but that's the capital gains portion that is expected. Now, of course, that always varies depending on, the economy, what people are doing in the market. It's not a static number.
Well, you hope they'll take this tax cut and do more.
Yeah, right. So, you'd hope there would probably be at least a one-time surge as people who are holding assets now will move them on.
So I thought it was interesting. It has to be frustrating when it's your bill on the floor for 3 or 4 hours and folks kind of making parliamentary moves and all this. It looked like you stuck in the saddle and the process kind of worked.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we thankfully had plenty of time, as a runway to do this, and we were able to work through issues. And I think you saw the Senate functioning the way it's intended to, where, people come together, some compromises are made, some broader issues are discussed. Some folks maybe make a point here or there, but at the end of the day, a really high-quality product emerges, one that represents the interests of a broad swath of Missourians that will be good economic policy for the state.
Let's talk about the state budget. The House sent a budget over. It kind of feels like we're in a cycle of they send some kind of political statement to you guys have to kind of write a real budget or pass some huge supplemental like you did this year.
Well, so I'm not on the budget committee, but I was when I served in the House for 4 years. I was on the budget committee for 4 years in the House. I have a tremendous amount of respect for everyone that's involved in the process and for just how complicated and difficult that process is. I think people, if you've never done a budget, you really underestimate how much effort and complexity goes into that.
Is there any better place to learn state government than the House Budget Committee?
No.
You actually talk to all these people.
Yeah.
And Senate kind of hits the high points.
Yeah, and more than anything, what government does is spend money. And so the state is the budget in many respects. And yes, I totally agree. There's no better way to learn the true essence of state government than through the budget process.
But I think the House Budget Committee is, if you were going to put on a class about Missouri state government, I think that the graduate level class would be the House Budget Committee, because they take more time, they interview more folks, they talk to more people, they have more time to do it. And I just think the amount of information you get about state government, you can't get that volume anywhere but the Budget Committee.
Yeah, and just there's more members. House is bigger, has more people that sit on the committee, And so, there's just more man hours that goes into the process over there, and they're able to dive pretty deep.
Let's talk about an issue that I know. It's so funny. You get up here, we talk about, oh, is the foundation forming and all these things. When you go home, folks talk about guns and abortion, right?
Yeah, those are the big touch-tone cultural issues are what folks mostly care about.
SEPA, I always credit Aaron Dorr. There is no one in this state that can make your phone ring more consistent with actual real people in your district than Aaron. SEPA is kind of is his baby. It passed a few years ago. The court just kicked it out. You got what I think Aaron hopes is a fix to the court's objections, now moving through the legislature.
Yeah, and I hope it's a fix as well. I think anti-commandeering is an underutilized avenue for states to push back against the federal government, and that's at its core of what this is an anti-commandeering, where you can't use state resources to enforce federal edicts. And this is an issue that's really important to Missourians, and it's a fundamental part of our rights and our identity as Americans, that we have the right to bear arms and to do so with a higher degree of freedom than you find almost anywhere else in the world.
Two questions. The other day, does the Missouri Senate pass SEPA this year or next year?
I think there's a high chance that it passes this year, but the Senate, you never know.
Well, you did spend like 10 hours on a county commissioner appointment, so who knows, right?
But I think a lot of senators care about it.
Number two, I'm a little, to me, I think the people of this state like SEPA, whether they even totally understand it or not, they like it. It feels like to me a little whack-a-mole with the courts. My gut tells me you're going to address these issues the court has, and then some federal court's going to find another problem. Am I wrong to be suspicious that may be the outcome here?
No, I don't know. That's a wrong suspicion to have. Now, I think that we can craft language that's pretty tight that will make it difficult for that to happen. But
you have 5 more years. Well, 5 years and 2 months in your Senate career.
Yeah.
Will you be passing another SEPA fix to try to appease the federal courts before you leave?
Maybe. I don't think so. Deep down, I think this is probably the last.
But if they say they say, okay, can't do this, you're just going to come back and say, okay, we'll fix that, right?
That's possible, but I think if it fails this time, it will really depend on why it fails. If it fails because of the core mechanics of the bill, which is not why it failed last time, then I think you have to look at what can you do differently.
The courts know they're as political as anything else. I think if they see that you're going to just keep coming back, there is a point where it's almost like with voter ID. The courts finally said, okay, they're just going to keep whatever we say the problem is. They're just keep fixing it. We might as well just knock it off.
Yeah, and so as long as the complaints are what people consider technical or more superficial, I think we will keep doing it. If it goes to the core mechanic of the bill, then I think you have to look elsewhere.
Let's talk about a complicated thing, but matters to everybody: utilities. This state is consuming more and more power, more than we're generating. Now you're seeing everywhere a data center. Every company that wants to move here needs a data center. I thought it was a very interesting and sometimes you say Missouri can't pass big things anymore, and then I see they pass this bill, and then within 2 weeks, Evergy comes out and says, we're building a power plant.
Mm-hmm. Well, right, which is exactly what we wanted to see, is more power generation coming to the state. And it's about the cost for the end user, for the average consumer. It's also about economic development and attracting jobs and businesses into the state. And if you look at a lot of the things that the General Assembly has done, although there are other primary effects, almost everything that has passed, all the big things that have passed this year, has that economic development as a core rationale for the passage, whether it's capital gains, whether it's some of the public safety issues that have passed, whether it's the utilities bill. Missouri is trying to put out the welcome mat for businesses that we want to grow the economy in this state. We want higher paying jobs. We want more prosperity for Missourians.
So, end of the day, I just think as part of your economic development pitch, you can say, well, today we can't generate enough power, but we have mechanisms in place now. By the time you might build the factory that has the data center attached, maybe you could meet their energy needs.
Yeah, and whether it's data centers or whether it's heavy manufacturing, I mean, you see what's going on.
Well, they've got to go
federal level
more, right?
That's true. A lot of advanced manufacturing is very data and technology intensive, and so those things do go hand in hand. But if we want to reindustrialize the country, if we want to reshore the supply lines that we see have vulnerabilities, both to natural events, to whether it's weather or
China invading Taiwan, yeah.
well, or the political events, which I would consider war as a political risk that exists out there. And increasingly a more significant risk. It's not just China; it's also, rebels in far-flung countries who now have access to advanced anti-ship technology and are, firing rockets into the ocean. Like, all those things impact the cost for consumers when goods have to travel through those dangerous zones. Reshoring critical technology sectors, critical manufacturing sectors, is a national security priority. Each state has a duty to do its part, and I think Missouri is doing its part. We're working to make the country safer, even as we grow Missouri's economy.
Let's talk about an issue that dominated, I think, the first half of the session was crime. I do think it's just basic math. I don't, as a hick from the boot hill, I don't like to admit it, but frankly, St. Louis is the economic engine of this state. If it grows just a little bit, it probably outpaces 20, 30 counties in certain parts of the states, significant growth in their economic output. But you passed a crime bill, signed into the law by the governor, kind of the governor's premier thing he wanted to do this session. What's the chances? When can folks start to expect to see just a decrease in the number of murders in St. Louis?
I mean, I think you'll start to see results immediately. Now, whether those results show up in the statistics is always a little bit.
I don't trust the statistics, but if there's a dead body, I trust that.
Well, sure, like that's a very clear measurement. But I think you'll start to see morale in police improve immediately. I think you'll start to see the effectiveness of the law enforcement apparatus immediately. I think you've seen a lot of improvement in the prosecution services and the other critical add-on pieces to the law enforcement system in St. Louis. And so as each one of those things improves independently, the whole is going to improve as well. Now, it takes time to reverse trends and to get the bad guys off the street, but we're definitely trending in the right direction. And I think a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, you will see an impact.
In reality, for someone in Sedalia, you planted a tree this session you may never sit under the shade of. If you're talking about economic growth for the state, handling crime's a 3 to 5 year plan. Then when people believe your crime rate's down, investing in growing jobs is another 3 to 5 years. I mean, it is a long-term view, right?
That's right. And you have to, have the willingness to, kind of go through the wilderness while you're trying to get there. And that's always a problem with government. We want to see short-term, rapid, success. But true success is not really going to be measured in the short term. It's going to be measured in the long term.
Senator Curtis Trent, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll be right back. Couple debuts on the panel. Cecile Williams and Jeremy Dean join us after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Missouri's childcare crisis is hurting our children, families, and even our economy. Currently, 78 Missouri counties are designated as childcare deserts, where the number of kids needing childcare exceeds the number of available options. Today, some Missouri families are spending more on childcare than housing, and Missouri's childcare shortage costs our economy $1.35 billion every year. Missouri families and businesses deserve better. Learn more at mochampionofchildren.com.
Some politicians claim cockfighting is a proud tradition, but is it really something to be proud of? Cockfighting isn't just cruel to animals, it's cruel to humans. It's linked to organized criminal activity, illegal gambling, even drug trafficking. Leading law enforcement and Christian groups have spoken out and are urging a stop to the violence. But some politicians want to give cockfighters a pass. Keep cockfighting out of our state.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back. This week in Missouri Politics, Opinion Maker Panel Time. Ray Reed from St. Louis, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How's Governor Nixon doing?
He's amazing.
Jeremy Dean, big shoes to fill out of Springfield. Replace Crystal Quaid. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Another first time on the show. Cecily Williams, Jeffco, right?
Yep.
What part of Jeffco?
Western. So Ditmer, Cedar Hill, House Springs, our
All right.
county seat.
From the Crystal Tavern, how do I get to your district?
Well, it would be a little further west, yeah.
Gotcha. And the Speaker Pro Tem of the House of Representatives, the man with the golden voice, Chad Perkins. Thank you for making the time.
Always a pleasure to be here, Scott.
Let's talk about a big issue that I know it's so funny. In the Capitol, sometimes these things aren't as big a deal, but back home, folks care about guns and abortion.
That's right.
Tell me, you've tried to get a fix for SAPA, the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Yeah, we have a volume 2 of SAPA, right? So we passed it some years back. The court had a few issues with it. We think we've got a second chance at it. We've addressed those issues, and it passed out of the House pretty convincingly, right? Fairly party line vote, but I think we've got a good chance at making it stick this time.
Ray Reed, it just feels to me like it's a little bit like legal whack-a-mole. Yes, the court said there's these problems with that bill. Well, fundamentally, do you have a supremacy clause problem that they're just going to find new problems with SAPA, whatever they pass?
Well, I'm certainly hoping so. For me in my district, it's kind of like a smack in the face because I think what Jeremy and I bring to bear to this chamber is that we are Gen Z. We had to practice school shooter drills before we even learned how to read, which is not a perspective that many other folks in that chamber have. So when we think about guns or rolling back gun laws, it's more of you're not listening to us. You don't care about school shootings. You don't care about gun violence in America. So it really hurts to see SAPA 2.0 pass the House.
Something tells me in Jeffco, back when they voted Democrat, they were pro-gun, pro-life. Something tells me now they vote Republican, they're pro-life and pro-gun.
That's right. Absolutely. Something in Jefferson County, we own more guns than we own food in our pantries. I mean, it's something that everyone has an arsenal of guns. I myself, we have over 30 guns in our house. I carry every single day, everywhere I go. It's something that I've done.
You're carrying right now in case Perkins got a line, right?
Well, you never know. You never know when
you didn't leave him on his toes.
Yeah. It's not, I hope I never have to use it, but I mean, I will if I need to. And one thing I've always said is if evil has a gun, I want one too.
Break this down. It's a very popular thing, the Second Amendment in this state. And even in the places that used to vote Democrat are the places where, frankly, I think guns are the most popular in some instances. This is saying basically that you can stop federal gun laws. Now, on its head, I think folks kind of give the term like, can you really do that? I guess my question is, can you really do that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you run into kind of an issue there whenever you're with the supremacy clause and just making sure that you follow what's coming down from the federal government. At the end of the day, what SAPA really does is tells them that they're not allowed to work with the law enforcement, not necessarily stop it.
That's a fair point, too. Law enforcement
which
is
I don't
in favor.
Yeah, right. And law enforcement is not in favor of it. And I'll tell you, coming from a rather purple district down in Springfield area, I'm a gun owner as well. But I think that responsible gun owners definitely understand how we can be kind of at a juxtaposition whenever we're looking.
So do you want to tell your colleagues to start back on the blue?
I mean, I know that these two sitting across the table from me definitely do, but I think they could spread that along.
I mean, not here, though, Jim. So. It is an interesting thing. Pretty consistent message from the Republicans, back the blue, except on SAPA.
Well, I will say this, Scott. I don't think that there is necessarily a uniform position from law enforcement on this. I think that's also somewhat regional. And where I come from, I've experienced zero issue with SEPA 2.0 from my local law enforcement.
Prediction time. It feels to me like the court issued some objections to this law. You're going to try to address them with the new law. Do you just get a new set of objections from the court every time you pass this? Ultimately, I think this passes the legislature signing the law. Do you think this is actually the law layer where the courts find new problems with this?
No, I think this actually passes the court muster. I have no doubt that it will be fine.
Prediction? Does it pass court
I
muster?
think so. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think?
I don't think it will.
I'm with you. What do you think?
I hope they smack it down.
I think they're going to do this, then you'll come back 3 years later and pass another law. I think you could be doing this for 10 or 15 years because it's kind of hard to rope in the federal government because they have the most guns and money. Like Warren Zevon, who has the most lawyers, guns, and money usually wins, and the federal government has the most lawyers, guns, and money.
And you and I got that Warren Zevon reference. I'm not sure everyone did.
The Gen Z folks might not have gotten that. They were bragging about being Gen Z. They don't know Warren Zevon. That's the downside to being
Teach
Gen
you guys
Z.
some good music.
If we had bumper music, we'd play it without the lawyers, guns, and money. Let's talk about the state budget. Well, we talked about guns. Let's talk about money. We'll get to lawyers maybe last. This House passed a budget.
Yeah.
Interesting list of priorities. Some positive things were funded. Give me the high points. If you're just an old boy driving a truck in West Plains, what should you know about what the House passes?
I think the thing that's most striking about it is, the governor recommended a budget close to $51 billion. We passed one out of the House that's a little under $48 billion. There were some somewhat uniform reduction from what the governor requested without anyone getting too worked up about it. I think it's an incredibly responsible budget that funds all the things that the state's required to do. And no one...
Did nobody get worked up because they think the Senate's just going to go actually fund things?
It does seem to happen that way from time to time.
Well, last year, I think the House did take the budget, and then they had to pass a supplemental, the biggest one in state history, to actually fund stuff. I think folks are kind of used to this. The House comes in and makes some political statement, then the Senate goes and funds things, and it usually works out fine. And if they don't, then they do a supplemental, right?
Well,
break me down. School funding.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Last year before y'all got here, there was turkeys voting for Thanksgiving. The rural folks voted for something that would never hold up, the formula. The formula has now been busted. Now you're seeing that reflected in policy.
Yeah, we fundamentally disagree on this one. Cutting $300 million from education is detrimental to the future state of Missouri.
That's what they said they were going to do, though. The formula's no good. I mean, they came out. It's not like they snuck it in, right? They came out and the state and said, this formula's over. We're no longer going to help rural schools. We're going to lead down a path probably to raising their taxes.
I think we're going to find out, education is expensive. I think we're about to find out the cost of ignorance will be a whole lot more expensive for state of Missouri.
When you talk to business owners, do they want another 1/10% state tax cut or better workers?
I mean, I think that it really is a divided party, a divided situation at that time. I mean, I'm a small business owner, and I'd love to see a reduction in my taxes for sure. But I think
Have you made a decision in the last 10 years based on your state tax bill that affected your business? Have you decided to hire somebody or not because of a state tax bill?
No, not
Me neither.
necessarily. Yeah.
I think it's a hard thing for the party. And someone like yourself, who's obviously came in and is becoming a star in the Republican Party, we've cut taxes from 6 to 4. We've seen no growth. Mm-hmm. And I've always been like, yeah, taxes, cut them. At some point, is the party going to have to step back and get in a room and say, hold on, we've been doing this tax cut thing, and we've seen no growth, none. At some point, you start to have to question, is this the right way to go?
Well, I think that, passing a responsible budget is incredibly important. I think that, even when it comes to funding education and the way the schools have their budgets and pass their budgets as well as we see a lot of, management issues when it comes along how schools are spending their money. And
that's right.
I think that that's something that we need to look at as well. Schools can do a better job.
They've got enough money for corn, man. They got too much money.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I think that the responsibility lies with everyone who's in the decision-making process, whether you're, a superintendent or you're a state legislator.
Representative, you're a highlighted government official. I'm just a simple white trash hillbilly. But at some point, you've cut taxes from 6 to 4. They want to take it to 0. But the state has seen zero benefit in going from 6 to 4. I mean, no growth has come to this state going 6 to 4. I'm the biggest tax cut. Yeah, whatever. Cut them. At some point, though, I think the party and the state's going to have to show that this is actually working.
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants a tax cut if you ask them. Right? I want a tax cut. Grandma wants a tax cut. Everybody wants a tax cut. At the end of the day, we got to have roads. We got to have schools. We got to have police forces, fire forces. All of those things are fundamentally important to the safety of.
And you have to have trained workers.
You got to have trained workers. I mean, workforce development is something that we're really struggling with, getting those jobs filled, and education is the number one investment that we can make. As
Old Governor Parsons' workforce development goes back again.
Yep, absolutely.
With a minute left, Chad Perkins, who won the week?
Dirk Deaton, Budget Chairman Dirk Deaton, delivered a good budget. It was actually the least painful budget debate I've ever been a part of. I thought it all went very smoothly, and Dirk Deaton won the week.
You should give the next budget chair laryngitis as well, right? And that seems to work.
I thought about getting to the mic and doing my Dirk Deaton imitation, see if anybody noticed the difference.
Okay, after this show's over, we got to hear that. All right, who won the week?
I took it back to our county. I think that, with the tornado cleanup, we had a huge tornado that came through Arnold, one that came through Cedar Hill, specifically in my district. And, I give it back to our firefighters, our emergency personnel, our ambulance. They have done an incredible job, and our mayors and, anyone that's in any sort of leadership position there. I mean, what a way for a community to come together. It's absolutely appreciative.
Won the week.
I got two. So federal, I've got Cory Booker really standing up and showing that Democrats do have a little bit of fight in them. It's something that we've definitely got to start doing a little bit more of. Here on the state level, I've got to give it out to Representative Faughn and her budget team, really working through where we had a very good budget season this year, and they really fought hard for what they wanted and what we need. So
she might have been the most impactful ranking member I've seen on the House Budget Committee in a long time. I mean, just watching that room, even the chair, they were actually going to her and collaborating a ton. It was a very different approach, and if I had to guess, probably the Democrats on that committee feel like it was a beneficial approach.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a job.
I heard only great things, and I respect her greatly and think that she is definitely one of the reasons that we got some good wins out of the budget this year.
Yeah, and then I'm a little afraid of her too, so I'm glad we said that. Who won the week?
Missouri Democrats. Our friends across the aisle, they're not showing up in districts, and we're showing up in town halls. We'll be in District 95 really soon.
Oh, where's 95?
It's South St. Louis County. The governor's left that seat vacant. I think he's kind of scared of that, calling that special election, because he's seeing that Democrats are flipping special elections in Iowa, Pennsylvania. And they're afraid it might happen in Missouri.
I've heard this a long time. You're saying you could actually pick up seats.
Absolutely.
I've heard this for 10 years. I've not seen it. It's almost like the growth from these tax cuts. I haven't seen the growth, but you're saying it's faith.
That's right, because we have candidates like Jeremy Dean, candidates who you want in politics, folks who are their communities and represent them in more ways.
I think kids like Betsy Faughn that flipped a seat, right?
She's stepping behind.
Yeah. I'm going to say the Missouri Senate, led by Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. I watched a filibuster. I think I spent about 14 hours in the Senate on Wednesday into Thursday, and while I know there was one senator that was upset with the outcome, the entire cohesiveness of that room was probably the best it's been in 10 years. And you have to credit the leadership. Tony Luke Meyer and Cindy O'Loughlin won the week. Hope you'll win the week next week by joining us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, the United Electric Cooperative, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.